invite members from our Hampton Falls Boy Scout Troop 377 to lead us in the presentation of the flags and Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand for presentation of colors. Color guard to your post. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remain standing. Color guard dismissed.
Thank you, Troop 377. I'd like to invite Pastor Grant Winnes to the opening invocation. Please bow.
Father in heaven, as we come together tonight as a community, we thank you for the freedoms that we have. We thank you for the flag that we just pledged allegiance to, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We thank you for those ideals and those principles that you've given to us and that you've written on our hearts and on our minds. Thank you for the freedoms that we have in this country to come together and assemble and to speak freely, to disagree and to agree, and to vote and decide as a community what direction we want to go. Thank you for the leaders that you've given to us, the school board, the principal, the superintendent, the teachers, community leaders who are here. We thank you. We pray for them, that you give them wisdom, that you give them discernment to lead us well. We thank you for this community. We thank you for everyone who's taken time out of their evening because they are concerned. They want to give voice to their concerns about the future of our town and our community. Thank you for the opportunity that we have in this town and this country for our children to receive education. So we pray that we come together in this meeting, that we would put their needs above our own, and that they would receive the support from us, both in property and in professional support that they need. Thank you that you've given all these things, again, the wonderful opportunity that we have to live in this great country and this great community. So in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Grant. I'd just like to introduce the people who are sitting at the front here. We have our school board members. We have School Board Chairman Mark Lane, Greg Parrish, Greg Merrill, John Bailey, who cannot be here tonight, and Pamela Miller. Our supervisors of the checklist over at the side table, Lynn Stan and Eileen Baker, our school clerk next to me, Hastings. And we have Principal Mark Boyd. We have Business Administrator Matthew Ferreira, Superintendent Robert Sullivan, and Attorney Robert Casassa, also here to help us this evening. Just want to go over a few rules. I'll go through these as quickly as possible before we begin our meeting. Many of you know this, but it's helpful to remember Hampton Falls is an SP2 or official ballot district, meaning that the purpose of this deliberative session is to discuss and amend the proposed budget and other articles appearing on the warrant to determine the final form as they will appear on the official ballot on March 13th. My role as moderator is to regulate these proceedings in an orderly manner, and I ask each of you to keep a few things in mind as we go forward. I ask that speakers first be recognized by me, the moderator, and please address your remarks to me. To the extent that we need questions answered, I will direct those questions appropriately. Speakers should use the microphone that's set up. When you come forward, and each time you come forward, please state your name for the clerk. We'll discuss each article in the order listed on the warrant, unless you as a body would like to have them discussed in a different order. Once an article is discussed and put on the ballot, it can be brought up again for reconsideration later in the meeting, unless the majority of the people here vote for strict reconsideration, in which case no further discussion or amendments could be made. I'd ask that if you have a proposed amendment to a warrant article, if it's a fairly simple or minor amendment, you can just verbally present that to me. If it's a little bit more involved, please write it down and bring it to me so that I have it correctly. We'll keep discussion to each warrant article as we're addressing, and if applicable, we'll keep discussion to any particular motion on the floor at a given time. We'll allow the people here to discuss the article or ask any questions until discussion has been fully fleshed out, or until by 2/3 vote, you as a body want to move on. If the discussion is getting lengthy, you can move on. You can vote to move the question, and we will call any votes necessary and proceed. We'll simply do all votes by voice unless there's a need to do otherwise. If at any point 5 of you would provide to me written instructions for a secret yes/no ballot on any vote, we can also do that. But barring any requests, I anticipate that all of our votes will simply be voice votes. Please, only registered voters in Hampton Falls may vote, and only registered voters, unless otherwise recognized by the moderator, may speak at this meeting. Keep all of your conduct friendly, please. There's no disruptive or conduct which interferes with this meeting. None of that will be allowed. I don't think that will be a problem. You guys look like a nice friendly bunch again, as always. Any ruling that I make as moderator can be overturned. This is your meeting. A simple majority vote of this body that was introduced in the warrant articles. We can't bring up subject matter that the residents and voters in Hampton Falls haven't been warned about, simply because they may have a desire to speak on matters and only are aware of the matters that we've already listed in the warrant article. As far as procedure, I'll read each article. On several of them, there will be some explanatory remarks. After that, we'll open it up for discussion. We'll also process any motions or amendments, if there are any, and finally move the article to the ballot in its final form. Any questions about the rules? Excellent. The first warrant article is the bond addition and renovation. The article reads as follows: to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,999,531 for construction of additional space, including a new music room, storage for the music room, new classrooms for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, general storage, and to provide other site work and utility support, provide architectural and other service fees, and provide any other items incidental to or necessary for the construction/renovations, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $3,999,531 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, as amended, and to authorize the school board to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. To authorize the school board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and the maturity and other items thereof, and further to raise and appropriate an additional sum of $73,841 for the first year's interest payment on the bond, and to authorize the school board to take any other action or to pass any other vote relative to thereto. I'd like to turn this over for a moment to Chairman Mark Lane to I can discuss some explanatory notes in the article.
Thanks, JP. Before I start, I did want to recognize our build team that is here in the second row to my right. We've got John Beloya, Lance Whitehead, and Mark LaHoo here. So if anybody has questions during the public session of this presentation, and you want to address them to any one of those members of the build team, please feel free to do so. Also, before I start, the board wanted to recognize Bob Sullivan. Bob, I'm sure sadly, understands that this is his last Hampton Falls regular session, as he's announced his retirement in June. Bob, from my perspective, has been nothing but a rock for this community. He's taught me a ton, I'm sure the same to the other board members, in terms of how to conduct a meeting and how to present yourself to the public and so forth. So he will be well missed, and we appreciate all the years of service he put in for the entire executive. So I want to start by saying that the need for space at LES has not changed. But this year the school board took a very different approach, a much more collaborative approach in achieving its goal for space. The school board worked closely with a group of private citizens that consulted with the school board regarding the development of a new building plan. This group consisted of 13 people, including 2 members of the school board, including myself and Greg Parrish, 2 builders that live in town, citizens that had historically supported the school board's plan for space in the past, and citizens who have historically not supported the school board plan in the past. And the school board would like to thank all of those who participated in this process of putting together a plan that we hope will pass this year. Specifically, would like to thank Stacy Canali, Scott Almeida, Charlene Brown, George Cope, Don Janik, Alex Katami, Tim Samway. Special thanks to Steve Alphone, who brought his citizens group together. Steve was a tough negotiator, but fair throughout this whole process. Also, special thanks to Lou Lojek and Tony Franciosa, both local builders, who not only put in time with this group of citizens that got together, but also spent additional time with the school board and working with the build team to ensure that our plan was sound and that the costs made sense. And lastly, a special thanks to Larry Smith, who put this citizens group together. So we appreciate all the time and effort that everyone put into it. The work put in by this group of citizens was comprehensive. It was contentious sometimes, but it was always productive. In the end, the group brought recommendations to the school board that we all agreed to, and the group agreed to a number of critical elements to this building project. Specifically, we agreed to what the critical space needs were at LES, agreed to that the plan would not include a new gym, agreed after much deliberation and discussion that our working with the current build team made the most financial sense. We worked with the build team to reduce the number of fixes to the plan that was originally presented and cut non-essential educational components of the plan. We worked with the build team to gain a clear understanding of the role of the project manager
in bidding out components of the project and keeping costs in check. We reviewed a comprehensive comparison of the costs of LAS's project with 33 projects from Massachusetts, similar projects, and 3 New Hampshire school additions. And we found that in all but one case, LAS's project was cost less than all of the others. And in that one case, when you solve for inflation, the cost was actually less. And I want to thank Alex Tatami, who I don't think is here, for putting that report together. There was an agreement to support a bond of no more than $4 million for the new construction, agreeing that excess costs associated with the new construction will be funded through the 2018-19 budget, and any future renovations to this current school will be provided for from future warrant articles or budgets. But most importantly, the school board would like to continue to work with groups of citizens, including the group that we worked with all summer long, regarding future warrant articles and or budgets associated with the renovations for the Space Needs project, really in an effort to continue in the spirit of compromise and collaboration. So what did we all agree to? In general, we agreed to add necessary space to meet the basic educational requirements and advance the opportunity to implement next generation learning at LAS to ensure that our students can be competitive against other students throughout New Hampshire and competitive against other students worldwide. Our space needs include an appropriate size music room that does not interfere with other classrooms that surround it, a classroom for world language program, new 5th grade classrooms in an effort to eliminate the 2 grossly undersized classrooms on the 2nd floor, an upgraded middle school science lab located in the middle school wing of the school, adequate space for makerspace program, which is currently residing on a table in the library, a dedicated physical education space and renovated gymnasium, and dedicated cafeteria and flexible space for collaborative project-based learning. Let's get some lighting. All right, Jack, I might need your help. Slide 4. Never been technically savvy, so I apologize. So what will the $4 million bond project accomplish? The bond project is for new construction of classroom space, and by creating classroom space, the school will be able to ultimately repurpose space in the current school to complete all of the agreed-upon space needs for LAS. The new construction will create classrooms for the following: an appropriately sized music room with soundproofing elements to limit distractions from other classrooms, much needed storage for the music room, new classrooms for the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, and general school storage. By adding this addition, it will allow us to repurpose classrooms in the current building, to renovate other parts of the building over the next few years in order to achieve our ultimate space goals. Because of the addition, we'll ultimately be able to add classroom space for world language by having that program move into the old music room. It'll allow us to move the undersized 5th grade classrooms into new space
allowing us to eventually renovate the 2 undersized classrooms into a modern junior high science lab located appropriately in the middle school wing of the school. It will allow us to move the Makerspace program into its own space, located in the current science room. It will allow us to move the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms into new space, ultimately freeing up those classrooms for renovation into the new cafeteria and flexible space. And by moving the cafeteria into the current 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, we'll finally be able to renovate this current cafeteria into a dedicated physical education space and a gym. And yes, that does mean a safe new floor. This plan will also give us permanent space for special education. So what is the cost of the proposed construction? The cost of the new construction came in at approximately $4.4 million. The school board, working with the private citizens this past summer, agreed to not bond more than $4 million for this project. As a result, the school board agreed to bond the new construction at $3,999,531. The school board also agreed to add the additional $400,000 of cost that was kept out of the bond to the 2018-19 budget under the renovation line item. The $400,000 essentially represents costs associated with owner's contingency, utility charges, pre-construction consultants, including civil engineering. The $3.99 million bond will cost the average taxpayer of Hampton Falls, assuming an average home value of $400,000, approximately $260 per year, or $21.67 per month. But in the first year, it will only cost the average taxpayer $72 or $6 per month. The 1-year increase in the budget, due to the additional $400,000 in construction costs, will cost the average taxpayer a one-time hit of $379 in that first year, the same year that we're only paying the $72 in interest. So what will the cost of the deferred renovation project to the school be? So the school board will continue to work with the private citizens group that I worked with this summer. Certainly work with other citizens as well to determine the timing, the magnitude, and the costing associated with deferred renovation projects. Deferred renovation projects will likely be included in future renovation budgets or warrant articles. So the major projects that would remain include renovating the current 3rd and 4th grade classrooms into the new cafeteria and flexible space, renovating the gym, including replacing the floor, removing the old air systems, and adding 2 rows of bleachers, renovating the 2 undersized classrooms in the middle school into a junior high science lab, replacing the windows in the 64 and 84 wings, and paving the new parking lot. The significant future renovation projects will be treated much the same as renovation projects have been treated over the last several years. Over the past few years, for example, we have completed significant projects that either warrant articles or within the renovation line item budget. The projects have included 2 new roofs, refurbishing the original windows in the original building, adding heat and air conditioning to every classroom, and replacing the electrical system in the original building. The school board goal first is to keep the cost of all future renovation items flat on our budget, and eventually allow us to reduce the budget significantly when these projects are completed. The costs associated
with the major projects are approximate and obviously would be bid out over time. And again, the school board would like to work with private citizens to determine the appropriate time to complete these projects. The school board would suggest, however, that completing the cafeteria and the gym renovations through the renovation budget or warrant article during the 2019-20 budget year makes the most sense, because that work would be completed during the same build phase of the new construction. But before making any decisions on the 2019-20 budget or warrant articles, or any future budgets or future warrant articles, the board would continue to consult with private citizens so that we collaboratively can make the best decision for the school and the taxpayer. So I'll quickly just point out a little bit on this map about the new construction. So this is the first floor. The new construction will include the music room, storage, and 2 classrooms on the first floor, and then on the upper floor, 4th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, 4th and 5th grade classrooms. The deferred renovation projects obviously include the gym, turning these classrooms over here into the new eating area and flexible space, and upstairs turning these 2 undersized classrooms into the new science lab. World language we moved into the current music room, and maker spaces moved out of the library into the current science room. That gives you a little bit of an idea of the overall project and scope of the plan. A quick look at what it looked like. And I think there are bigger plans over here if anyone wants to take a closer look at these. So, in conclusion, this plan is really a win-win-win. It's a win for the students of Hampton Falls, gaining them the needed space that we all agree is critical to make basic educational standards, to meet basic educational standards, and allowing us to better educate to next generation standards. The plan is a win for the taxpayers of Hampton Falls, limiting long-term debt to under $4 million while spreading out any additional renovation dollars through the budget or warrant articles under a collaborative effort. It's a win for all citizens of Hampton Falls as we upgrade our town's biggest asset and most important asset, making our town one of the most desirable towns in New Hampshire to live in. This plan is a true compromise between historic supporters of the school addition and those that have worked hard to protect the interest of the taxpayers. This plan is a collaboration that we should all be proud of. I hope that all of us will support the plan publicly. I hope that we all knock on our neighbors' doors to support the plan and ask them to support it. I ask that you support it through newspaper editorials, letters, signs, and be proud that we're finally able to come together and make this school plan a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I'll now turn it over to the audience here for any questions or comments. Again, just a quick reminder, please use the microphone, and please, when you come up, state your name.
Steve Walpole. You all hear me? A couple comments first. A disclaimer of sorts. I am not a representative of any group. I am speaking for myself. Any idea that I represent a group and speak for them is a little bit of an exaggeration. Give me too much credit. A couple things. On the bond, I think it's important to understand that the first year There's $400,000 set aside. It's primarily contingencies, and we hope that we're not going to have to spend all that money. And I would assume that the school board would be willing to give back that money to the taxpayers if they don't spend it. In the worst case scenario, they spend it. In the best case, none of it gets spent. That money will go back to the taxpayers. I think it's extremely important that we look at warrant articles as the mechanism by which we, in the future, fund any project for a couple of reasons. One, it puts an incentive on the school board to come in with a very cost-effective proposal with no fluff in it. Second, it's maximum transparency to the taxpayer. They get to see what they're buying. And the third thing, it's project specific. That means it can't be spent on anything else. You put it in a budget, it's a bottom line budget, you can spend it on other items. So I think that's very important. There's been a lot of concern and some feedback that I've received. They don't think people that I have historically been associated with don't think I did a very good job in negotiating, or whatever that's worth. But I've got to say that what we came up with just gets us to the 50-yard line. The real work now is going to be how we fund in the out years some of the things that haven't been done. And I agree that we need to do a dining area. It doesn't have to be an elaborate cafeteria. And we need to do the floor. And if we can keep those items at a reasonable amount so that the budget remains level, I think that we have a good chance of getting these things done. But they have to be done with warrant articles, not with a budget. What we really agreed on, or what I agreed on anyways, as part of these negotiations, that we would do a cafeteria and we would do a dining area and a floor for the gym, and obviously the air system. Didn't agree on anything else on going out into the out years, namely some of the other projects. Those would have to be discussed, and I'm not sure in my own mind whether those things are really needed, but that's something we can discuss as we go forward. So that's really my position on this. I think that the main concern that I am getting back from some of the people that have historically not voted for the project is that what's going to happen in these out years? Are these expenses going to just balloon back up again, and we're going to we're going to exceed the budget, we're not going to level fund, and these things are going to get out of hand? That's where the warrant articles come in. So I think that the school board should keep that in mind going forward, that we're careful about how we go about asking for more money for some of these projects. Does anybody have any questions?
If you have any questions, you can get in line, direct any questions or comments to me, please. Yes.
Just a comment. I don't disagree with what you're suggesting, that the out years we have to be very careful about. The school board, is always interested in trying to keep the budget, and I think we've done a remarkable job as best we can to try and keep our budget in check. There's no question that in those out years we want to do things to try and keep the budget down. And like I said during the presentation, ultimately that $400,000 in that year one goes away. That's the ultimate goal. And on top of that, I think it's hard to determine what the cost of certain projects are going to be, 2 years out, 3 years out. But I think we can take a look at what the scope of the entire project is. And if it's a matter of taking one step at a time, maybe you take one step at a time. For example, do you have to get rid of the air handlers at the same time as you do the floor? And such things like that. And those are all things that we can discuss and talk about and deliberate. But I think the overall message, I think, is that the school board is interested in doing what you're suggesting, keeping the budget.
I think it's important to understand that the first year we had $400,000 set aside in the budget renovation line for contingencies primarily, and $75,000 for the first year's interest, which is $475,000. I would hope that any projects going forward would never exceed that number. And that number in the second year, the out year, is going to start off at $275,000 for principal and interest. So that means that we're constrained down to these projects to some number than $150,000. So I would hope that we could agree that some of these projects that we have coming up, that we can fit them in there and still get them done in 2019, 2020. That's where the real work is going to come in, and that's where I think that both Tony and Will can help us in coming up with some realistic quotes for some of these projects.
Yes.
That's Forgione, Exeter Road, in Durham.
I think I grossly overestimated the average height of people here.
That's Forgione, Exeter Road. As I understand it, there's a separate building for the music room now. Is that true?
There's a mobile classroom.
Mobile classroom, is that going to stay, or are you going to,
That would go away.
after construction? I see.
No, before construction.
Then put it back in the building?
It would have to go back, music would have to go back into its old classroom during the construction.
Okay, so.
Because the new building would essentially be at the same location as that outfit.
Okay, so we wouldn't have the cost next year or whenever construction starts in that additional building.
We would not have a rental cost.
Good, and well done working together. That's a delight to see. Thank you for that.
Jeff Sargent, Kensington Road. $400,000 seems like a pretty substantial amount for contingencies. Just kind of wondering how that $400,000 total was arrived at.
Well, I'm going to let Mark Lahoulier answer that to a certain extent, but I'll start by saying that the total project cost was $4.4 million. So the $400,000, you can. When we agreed that we wouldn't bond more than $4 million, that $400,000, you can make it up as anything you want. I mean, you could say that's for the roof of the new building. As I said in my presentation, if you add the pre-construction engineering costs and some owner's contingencies and those things up, that's what came to that amount. So it was really just an easy way to describe that. But the reality is the total project cost is $4.4 million. And like I said, you can break the $400,000 if you want. But Mark, you have a more...
Mark, would you like to comment on that?
Sure.
Thanks, Mark.
The $400,000 actually was reduced from something much higher at a particular point in time. I think in previous projects we included line items for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That as part of this process, it was decided that would be that the district would be reusing existing equipment. But essentially, the $400,000 is approximately $260,000, about 5% of the overall project for owner's contingency, which we recommend for the most part across the board. Part of that contingency is a source of funds to fund for unforeseen conditions, although we don't foresee anything in the ground because we did some work. Winter conditions costs. We don't know what those will be. Owner requesting changes. If something comes up that the district is looking to add because it makes sense to do so during the construction period. It's that source of funds for those. In addition to that, there are consulting fees, the civil engineering design fees to occur, permit fees you can waive. We've got independent testing that needs to be done as part of the project, owner's project manager's fees, those kinds of things. So there's about 175 or so thousand for consultant fees, basically, and then the balance of that is owner's contingency.
So really, to get my head around this, based on the chair's comment, the project cost is $4.4 million, roughly $4.4 million. Does that $4.4 million include the contingency costs?
Yes.
Okay. And so based on the comments made by Mr. Malpone, there's a possibility that those won't be spent, but what I'm hearing from the chair is that the real cost of the project is 4.4, and that does include the contingencies.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Will Lovejack. I live at 28 Kensington Road, and I joined with the school board as as one of the citizens, and I have a building background. Some of you may remember from last year. When I started this process, the first thing I did, because I had heard a lot of different things, was I made an appointment with Mark, the principal, and I walked the school myself. And I had heard the stuff about we have insufficient room, there's insufficient storage, this and that. I had wanted to see it with my own eyes. So I toured the place, and I saw that the school, over time, had grown based on the needs of the community. But that isn't necessarily a planned growth. It's kind of ad hoc. They put pieces together. One of the things that came out of this process for me, at some point I realized that we were doing exactly the right thing, although we weren't really focusing on this. There are 3 stages in here. There's K through 2, K 1 and 2, then there's 3, 4, and 5, and there's 6, 7, and 8. And I always thought it made sense that these kids would be kind of segregated by grade. They get together at certain points. But it makes a whole lot of sense to me, especially the way education is today and the way what's going on with kids and social media and all that stuff, that the kids should be separated. We actually accomplished that in this process. Now, there's a lot of give and take initially about, oh, you don't need that much room. You don't need 10,000 feet, you need 8,000 feet. And I was one of those proponents initially. It's the art of compromise, and it's also the art of enlightenment that I realized that we did need 10,000 feet. So we worked on this back and forth. Tony was a big part of this too. And initially there was a lot of, it was edgy initially, let's put it that way. Eventually we persuaded each other and we really hammered on this thing. And Steve led the way with the budget business because he's had a lot of experience in the town. We realized that we could actually accomplish this 10,000 feet with a $4 million, more or less, approach. And, there's a part of me, I'm in construction now, I consult. I know that some of this is fungible. You can't know everything. So there will be contingencies, and we will be watching. I intend to have a hand in this as we go forward. There's always more than one way to do things. And I am kind of lit up with the idea of continuing to look in. I'm not looking in as, Mark is in charge of this oversight, but nobody has a corner on good ideas. So I intend to be part of that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Beverly Newton, Brown Road. Couple of questions, probably simple ones. How many students in the school today?
Mark, would you like to address that?
234.
234. How many in the 5th grade?
In the 5th grade.
And I assume they're split between 2 rooms, correct?
Yeah.
And the other observation is I assume that the mechanicals are going to be on the roof in the new addition, correct?
Mark, would you like to address that?
Yes, it's a combination. I think it's a combination. Pulling off the existing boiler with the air handlers and mechanical systems.
Are we doing heat pumps again?
No, likely they're going to be
have, as a taxpayer, that the 400,000, or what's left of the 400,000 that's in the budget, will go back to the town? Is there any guarantee?
Marcus, would you speak to that?
Sure. Well, to begin with, last year when we presented this, we said there's Plan A and there's Plan B. Plan B was the route of the mobile classroom. The school board has already publicly said that we are not going to pursue any mobile classrooms next year, this current budget year, the next budget year, if the bond is not passed. Okay, so that money will not go towards any mobile classrooms. Now that doesn't mean mobile classrooms won't be part of the process following year, because we still have to address the space needs if the bond doesn't pass. Outside of that, the school board submitted a CIP for the town of all of its required expenditures over the next 5 years. So there would be some conversation as to whether or not any of that money would be used towards the CIP improvements, which would ultimately, any of those CIP improvements are ultimately part of this bond. So I would say, I can't guarantee anything other than to say that the school board's intention would be to spend the money wisely or give it back to the town if it doesn't need to be spent at all.
But there's really no guarantee that that will happen if you find these other projects that you can do with that money.
Well,
In a timely fashion.
we certainly aren't going to fix the gym because you can't fix the gym unless you have a place for the kids to eat. We're not going to have a place for the kids. We're not going to fix the 3rd and 4th grade classroom as a place to eat because then we don't have a classroom for the 3rd and 4th grade.
Well, unless you do it in summer.
Well, we wouldn't do it in summer because we wouldn't have the money to build a classroom for them. So there is no classroom. We're not going to do mobile classrooms. So I guess the answer to your question is no, we're not intending to take any of these elements associated with the deferred expenditures, deferred renovation costs, and make them part of that $400,000 because it doesn't make any sense to do that.
Okay. So
It doesn't make sense to do those renovation projects outside of, there's still windows that need to be replaced in the old school. There's still, some projects that I suppose you could accomplish, but anything to do with, the addition of classroom space for the kids, it doesn't make any sense to do without an addition.
Okay, so basically the 400,000, say you spend 200,000 of it on contingencies, so the other 200,000 will go back to the town in the next budget
Correct.
cycle.
Well,
General fund, sorry, goes back to.
so, of the four, yes, exactly.
Okay. So my other question was, all right, then.
Yes, sir. There are areas to save potential money in this project beyond contingencies too. So you never know. This whole process of this building is a big process, right? And I think Mark Lahulier did a great job working with. I think Will was there that night, and Tony was there that night to talk about the bid process for everything that we do in regards to this project. It's extensive, and he really has the best interest of the school and the taxpayers in mind when we're building this project. So there are opportunities potentially through bidding to save money on every aspect of this. So it's not just contingencies.
I guess, just to clarify that a little bit, the $400,000 that we're talking about putting in the budget this year is specifically in there in relationship to completing the addition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if it's not used specifically for that, I think it's only fair that the taxpayers can expect the school board to get that money back and then go after any other money with warrant articles. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's a fair assumption, yeah.
I remembered what my question was. For the default budget, does any of that $400,000 that's in the rental budget, does that carry forward into the default budget?
Default budget discussion. Matt, how does that work?
Beverly, for clarification, are you asking, does any of that go into the default budget for next year? Is that your question?
Right.
I thought that was it.
So for the 1920 budget, so the default budget for everyone's reference is the prior year's budget plus or minus any contractual obligations or one-time charges. In this instance, I think we would classify that as a one-time charge. I would not carry over in the default budget.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
You know, over the last couple of years since I've been doing this, I know that the question of transparency and trust and all that has come up. And some of it, I can assure you that I personally, the 2 years I've been chairing this board, absolutely, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, ever. That's not my goal. I'm a taxpayer in this town too. I don't want my taxes to go to the roof. I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in doing what's best for the town and the taxpayers. On top of that, you know, when I first joined the board, and I guess this is why I credited Bob before I started, I had a lot to learn too in terms of process and how things work. Jim Morris, I don't see him here today, but you know, he spent a lot of time talking about transparency and default budgets and all that. And I get that message. So I understand that. And I think this board intends to be as transparent in this process as possible. That's why we've taken the approach we've taken this year. So that's the goal. I don't want to spend money recklessly at all. And I think everyone on this board would probably agree with that.
Jeff Sargent again. Yeah, I have not supported the school board's plan over the last few years, but I do support fixing this gym. This floor is abysmal, and it's unsafe. But from what I saw in the presentation, that the only condition under which the gym is going to get fixed is if we move the cafeteria to another part of the building. Is that what I'm hearing? And I guess my question is, can the gym be fixed and maintain its use as a cafeteria?
Not easily, for a lot of reasons. And it's not just the safety issue of the gym, it's also the fact that physical education, which is an important part of our kids' education, is compromised here at the school because of the amount of time this room is used as a cafeteria during the course of the day, but also used for other functions. So there are a lot of school-wide functions that occur here today, and you know, physical education tends to get the short end of that stick. We are below the state recommended number of days that kids should be participating in physical education here at this school because of conflicts of time. But back to the floor, I forget who was with me, but last year, I know Alan was there, and I think Mark Bertolus was there, Mark Knapp was there. We took a field trip to a school, I forget what school it was, Kingston. The reason we did it is because we were looking for options to replace the floor and continue to use it as a cafeteria. The problem is you can't, there are very few floors that we can put, if any, that we found, that we can put in here and still continue to use it as a multi-purpose room cafeteria. The example down in Kingston was horrific. What they did is they put in the same type of floor in their gym cafeteria as they have over at the Rim over in Hampton. So the process that they go through on a daily basis is about 35 or 40 minutes long of two people having to come, put a tarp down over the gym floor, tape the tarp down. I think they said their tape budget was $12,000 just because of the process they had to go through. And this is just to prevent kids from spilling and doing and causing harm to the floor and having stuff leak in between the cracks of the floor and so forth. They go through this process every single day. Here we go through that process twice. It's just not a good solution. So I know we've had a lot of pressure to fix this floor over the years. We've talked about whether or not it makes more sense to move games and so forth out of this facility over to the room and pay for games to be played. But it's still a physical education space, so safety is an issue for sure. But it has to be. You don't want to throw good money after a bad solution, and that's what we'd be doing unless we can move the two, the cafeteria and the physical education, out of the same space.
Are there any further questions? All right, looks like we're ready to move on. Being there are no amendments, Article 1 moves to the ballot as written. Is there a second to the motion? Okay, so there's been a motion to restrict. I'm just going to take a moment to explain again. Basically, that would, a vote in favor of restricting this article would preclude the possibility of discussing this subject matter further in this meeting. So that's something that cannot be undone. It's up to you whether you want to do that. The pros are that, of course, some of you might want to leave early and you don't have to worry about this article coming up again. The cons are that you might hear something that changes your mind. You might want to bring it up again. So we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Very good. All those in favor of restricting this from further consideration, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Okay, the ayes have it. Article 1 is restricted. Article 2, operating budget. Shall the school district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant article and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote at the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $6,522,319. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $6,156,459, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 4013, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. I'm going to turn this over to Mark for some explanatory comments.
Thanks, JP. So I was going to run through the budget by category, if that's acceptable to people. It gives you an overview of kind of the major categories and any increases or decreases in those particular categories, and then you can obviously open it for discussion afterwards. Regular education. 2019, 18-19 budget is 1.779. That's a total increase of $90,000. And then I put a line here for the greatest impact. $95,000 of that increase was because of increased salaries of certified staff. Just to clarify, I had this question last time I presented this. They're asking, well, how can they increase the $90,000 if the increase in salaries is $95,000? That's because we made budget cuts in other areas of this area. Proposed budget for special ed is $1.159 million, total increase of $81,000. The greatest impact here was increased salaries of certified staff of $10,000, increased salaries of specialists of $93,000, increased salaries of aides and monitors of $13,000. There were a couple significant decreases in professional services of $21,000 and decreased tuition payments of $21,000. Student activities, the proposed budget is about $58,000 with an increase of $2,000. That included increased salaries of coaches to $4,500. Health, the proposed budget of $79,000, increase of $5,600. Again, the greatest increase had to do with salaries of certified staff of $6,200. Did I skip one? That's guidance, I'll just read it. Apparently I skipped one instead of going back because I can't control this thing. Guidance, the proposed budget is $60,000 roughly. Total increase of $1,300. Again, the greatest impact there was increased salaries of certified staff of $1,300. Educational media, proposed budget of $82,000, with an increase of $14,000, and the greatest impact there was, again, salaries of certified staff. Technology, proposed budget $135,000, with a total increase of $10,000. Greatest changes were increased salaries of $3,600, software licensing of $8,700, and new technology equipment actually went down by $3,300. Board of Education, the proposed budget is $44,000, total increase of $3,200. Greatest impact was our legal bill of $2,500. SAU services were $114,000 budgeted, increase of $9,000. Greatest impact was increase in services of $9,000. School administration, proposed budget $165,000, total increase of $5,400. Greatest impact were salaries of administration of $2,500 and salaries of clerical of $2,400. Buildings, so the proposed budget is $754,000. Greatest impact there is renovations. So this is the $400,000 associated with the school project that we added into the renovation line item, or to the buildings line item. So that's the greatest impact. You only see a $238,000 increase there because there were decreases in that renovation line item from last year. Repairs and maintenance was also up significantly, $34,000. Grounds stayed generally flat at $700. Relocatable billings. This has to do with the mobile
classrooms that we originally had budgeted for. The proposed budget is $39,400. That's to eliminate the mobile classroom. So it's a total decrease of $67,000. And we hope to eliminate this line item forever. Transportation, $263,000, an increase of $3,300. The biggest increase was transportation contract of $5,000. Debt service, this is in association with the Merrill property. The proposed budget is $88,000, total decrease of $3,200. I'm anticipating the question. I think the Merrill property bond is up in 2023 or 24. That will go away. Employee benefits, proposed budget 1.46. That's a total increase of $123,000, so this is fairly significant. The greatest impact is health insurance, $71,000. Dental up $3,800, bike up $19,000, and retirement up $27,000. Interfund transfer, there's food services, small increase from $150,000 up $2,200. Total operating budget is $6.5 million, up $558,000. And of course, a significant chunk of that is $376,000 of that increase has to do with salaries and benefits. $272,000 has to do with renovation and repairs. Essentially, that's the $400,000. I wanted to point out that 31 out of the 122 budget line items decreased, accounting for a total decrease of $140,000. 39 out of the 122 line items remain the same. So, obviously, the significant increases that the board cannot, which does not really have any control over, are contractual salaries and benefits, special education, and so forth. Thank you, Mark. I'd like to open this up for any questions or comments.
Evelyn Mitrin again. Could you tell me if there are any staff increases in all those salary increases?
Fair enough.
They're not, that's what I thought. So all those salary increases were contractual,
Correct.
pretty much? Okay. Is there anything going to be done about the health insurance? Are you going to start looking hard at that? Can you?
I would suggest maybe Matt can respond. Sounds good, Matt. Take it away.
So yeah, so health insurance, as I'm sure you're aware, has been increasing across the board nationwide. It's a challenge that we are that we're dealing with. Unfortunately, we're seeing rising rates. We do have a health insurance subcommittee to look at ways to decrease that cost. We're looking at different plans. We're looking at ways to encourage our employees to do smart shopping. There's a smart shopper plan that can make a significant impact. We have wellness programs, which that's more of a longer term benefit. Last year, I priced out other health insurance options. there are a total of 4 options. So one is Hampton through Health Trust. Another is, I think it's Harvard Pilgrim through School Care. Then we have Tufts and Interlocal Trust, and that's what we're limited to. 2 of those organizations declined to quote us due to our claims history, and the other came in pretty much essentially the same as what we're paying currently. It's a highly regulated industry. We're not going to see dramatic changes. I'm sorry, 1 declined. The other, after speaking with them, they didn't have the doctor coverage on the Seacoast area. It just didn't make sense. We knew it wasn't going to work. It's something that we are constantly looking at. Our best option is to educate our employees to really smart shop.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so no further questions. Article 2 will move to the ballot as written. Yes. All right, there's a motion to restrict Article 2. Is there a second? Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of restricting, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Article 2 is restricted. Article 3, Seacoast Education Support Personnel Association. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Hampton Falls School Board and the Seacoast Education Support Personnel Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing levels. Rather confusing to try to read the table, so unless somebody wants me to read that table out, I'm going to continue on the next paragraph. And further, to raise and appropriate a sum of $14,008 for the 2018-19 school year, such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at the current staffing levels in accordance with the current collective bargaining agreement. And I'm first going to call on Greg Parrish for some explanatory information.
Thank you. Well, this is my 4th year standing in front of you to talk about collective bargaining. And earlier this week, dawned on me that many people may not realize we actually have 2 unions that teachers and their support staff are members of in the school. And I thought it prudent to clarify what those 2 unions are. And the first union is the Seacoast Educational Association. And we call that C, and that's what our teachers are part of. That's the bigger of the 2 unions. The second union is called the Seacoast Educational Support Personnel Association. We refer to that as SESPA. It's a smaller union, and essentially that union is the paraprofessionals and the support staff for the teachers within the school and the entire SAU 21 district. Tonight we're going to talk about SESPA. At the end of this school year, the 2-year contract for SESPA will end. So last fall, we met with SESPA to begin contract negotiations. The we part of that conversation pertains to a school board member from Northampton, the Winnicott School Board, Seabrook, Southampton, and here at Hampton Falls. And I was a representative there. Joining us in those conversations was Dr. Sullivan, Matt, and Rana, our assistant superintendent, as well as Kim Connolly, our HR manager. Generally, there are 3 topics that come up in these conversations. This is not my first collective bargaining discussion that have been part of the seed negotiations as well as this one. Some of the areas of discussion that are continual are wages, health insurance, and this year a third one is thrown in, and that's contractual language. We'll get to that in a minute. After several meetings, the following is what we agreed upon. It's a 2-year deal. As JP indicated, the agreement will raise and appropriate over 14,000. Oh, we've got it. The wrong slide. Yeah. Here we go. It's a 2-year agreement from 2018 to 2020. The salary schedule year 1 will have a cost of living adjustment of 2.5%. In year 2, there will be a 2.75% cost of living adjustment to themselves. We've also provided 2 additional paid sick days, 2 additional personal days, and 2 additional paid holidays. The language adjustments. Through these contracts, as time goes on, language expires, language becomes outdated, or we just don't use the language. There was one area of the contract where it's the definition of the employees. We found that in the 3 categories, 99% of the employees were in one category. So we weren't even really using the other 2. We eliminated 1 and then changed it around a little bit. We also looked at the language in grievance, employee evaluation, work duties, compensation, personal development, and sick leave. It's just updating language within the contract. That's a good thing, because now we're current with both what laws state as well as what both the boards and the voting. The agreement for year 1 and the cost impact to Hampton Falls would be a little over $14,000. In year 2 would be just under $12,000. If we don't, if this does not pass, these are some of the issues that will impact us. There will be no more steps for the support personnel. And don't kid yourself, these are very important people. They work with a lot of special education students. They work with other students that require additional help. They're very important to the teaching and education of the students. So we need these people. Most of the other districts, they're offering benefits we're not right now. They could be looking elsewhere. We need to pass this. It'd be difficult to attract quality employees for these positions if this does not pass. Some of the issues that I mentioned, what they do, what a loss of these employees would be to our district. Two years ago, the C contract failed. And it failed because of the SB2 and how we're established. When you walk into the voting booth, you receive 2 ballots. You receive a Winnicott ballot and you receive a Hampton Falls School Board ballot. You need to vote the same on both ballots. Now the catch there is there's 5 other towns that have to vote the same way too. If this fails in one town, then the whole contract fails. So you have to tell everybody, and anybody you know in the towns, who vote on both ballots, to support this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on Article 3? Yes, please come up to the microphone.
Greg, could you tell me, why did the contract go down the second year? When this, it starts out at 14,000, why did it go down to 11?
Would you like me to address that?
Yeah, thank you.
So so part of the increase is the step increase. Well, we have paraprofessionals that reach top step in year 2, so they will not be receiving that step. So that we see the increase there.
Yes.
Greg, you just kind of threw over the definition of that, so I'm trying to get my brain around.
Sorry, definition of,
Of the second smaller union?
okay, that is CESPA. They're the support staff and paraprofessionals that work with teachers. So you'll have a teacher with their curriculum plan with their students in their class. And there will be certain students within that class that may require additional assistance, either because they have special education requirements or they're on a particular plan and they need additional help.
So these are not teachers, these are assistants. So
Yes. And so depending on the need of the students, a particular class, there could be 1, 2, sometimes 3 within a class that works with these students so that they can continue to maintain pace with the rest of the class. Sorry about that, Will.
John Brown, Kensington Road. This increases sick, personal, and holiday by 2 each. What does that bring the total to in that package?
Like me,
Matt?
thank you. So that's an important note. When we're looking at other districts in the area, we are significantly lower. So currently, for sick leave, we offer 10 days. So this would bring them up to 12. Area schools, the standard number is 15. When we look at personal days, we're going from 0 to 2. Area schools are at 3. And then when we're looking at the holidays, we're going from 2 to 4. And the other area schools are typically around 8 or 9. They roughly follow the federal holidays. So we are significantly lower, even bringing them up to that point. Additionally, other schools offer a full benefits package, so that's health, dental, and retirement at 30 hours, where we offer them at 35, and 99% of our EAs we employ at 34.5 hours. So they do not receive that benefit package. It's a big concern because we're losing them. We're losing them to other school districts in the area. We're at about a 30% turnover rate. And these are staff members that are extremely important. They're on the front lines working with not only our special education students, but they're in the classroom helping all of our students. I can't tell you how many times that I've had teachers tell me, these aren't paras, these are my co-teachers. I mean, these are very low-cost employees that really deserve much more. Unfortunately, within the construct of the CBA, it is very hard for us to give them a raise because it needs to pass in every single town. So it's very difficult for us to provide benefits because that'll be a huge cost. And one town votes it down on one ballot, and it fails for everyone. And that applies to the raises as well. They really deserve much more than this, but we're trying to get them there slowly but surely. Thank you.
Greg? We do what we can to help them, but then sit and talk with them. They're the employees, you want to do what you can, but for myself, I have to come back to this board and answer questions about the increase, because this will all go in the budget, and then we have to answer to you. And to Matt's point, they're extremely valuable, and they deserve a lot more. It is very much a struggle in these conversations because you'd like to do more for them, but there are a lot of reasons you can't sometimes.
Just to put it in a slightly different perspective, at home, and I mentioned this a couple of years ago, the increase over that 2-year period is roughly $25,000. But if one of our students was poor and needed to be, because of a lack of coverage and supervision and instruction, needed to be pulled and put into an out-of-district placement, you're now looking at $100,000 a month. So we've got $25,000 over 2 years for a group of individuals that we acknowledge are underappreciated, and they are the hard workers. Or we take the risk and out
additional replacements, you can easily get to a couple $100,000 for just purpose. So it's hedging our bets and protecting ourselves, just another building.
Any additional questions or comments? Very good. Seeing none, Article 3 moves to the ballot as it appears in the warrant. Article 4, Special Education Expendable Trust. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the existing Special Education Expendable Trust Fund, with up to $25,000 to be funded from the June 30, 2018 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2018. No additional amount to be raised from taxation. Are there any questions or comments on this article? Yes?
What's the balance in the fund now?
Matt, do you have that?
It is $157,517.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. Article 4 moves to the ballot as written. Article 5, Building Maintenance Expendable Trust. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the existing Building Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, with up to $25,000 to be funded from the June 30, 2018 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2018. No additional amount to be raised from taxation. Matt, would you like to give us the balance on that fund?
Certainly. That is $68,805.
Any questions on Article 5? Very good. Seeing no questions, Article 5 moves to the ballot as written. Does anyone have any other questions or comments at this time? Very good. Thank you all for coming. I will accept a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Very good. Thank you all. Have a great evening.